Association of Ghana Industries in partnership with the German Development Corporation.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time this morning. It seems you've had a couple of people joining. We're about 16 now. Just before we start, I think we could give 3 more minutes for the others who are struggling to join. And then at 10:05 exactly, we would start. So thank you for your patience, and we'll start soon.
Reach. What would you do? All you have to do is reach out to the AGI Energy Service Center. We provide tailor-made energy saving solutions to businesses. We provide you with solar feasibility studies, energy audits, energy efficiency trainings, and financial advisory services. Visit AGI-ESC.com for more information or call us on 0507 977 902. AGI-ESC, Sustainable Energy for Profitability, an initiative of the Association of Ghana Industries in partnership with the German Development Corporation, implemented by GIZ. What if the answer to powering and running a clean, efficient, and sustainable business now lies within your reach? What would you do? All you have to do is reach out to the AGI Energy Service Center. We provide tailor-made energy saving solutions to businesses. We provide you with solar feasibility studies, energy audits, energy efficiency trainings, and financial advisory services. Visit AGI-ESC.com for more information or call us on 0507 977 902. AGI-ESC, Sustainable Energy for Profitability, an initiative of the Association of Ghana Industries in partnership with the German Development Corporation, implemented by GIZ. What if the answer to powering and running a clean, efficient, and sustainable business now lies within your reach? What would you do? All you have to do is reach out to the AGI Energy Service Center.
Good morning again. Thank you all for your patience in waiting for us. And thank you for joining our webinar series today. The series is on business participation and competitiveness in relation to the AfCFTA, which is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. This is the first of 3 sensitization webinars titled Customs, Import, and Export Procedures. This webinar series is hosted by the AGI Energy Service Center with support from the GIZ Trade Hub. My name is Kofi Nimayaku. I work with the Energy Service Center, and today I'll be the moderator for the event. With us today, we have an expert in terms of AfCFTA matters, who is also the CEO of the Africa Trade Academy, and for the purpose of this project, a consultant for the GIZ Trade Hub. He would introduce himself further, but before that, we would have a word from Ms. Sophia Kamudi, who is a component manager with the GIZ Trade Hub. So Sophia, you could come up and give us a few words just before Dode starts.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Kofi. It's a pleasure to actually be here with you all on behalf of GIZ Ghana and on behalf of the GIZ Trade Hub. I would like to officially welcome you to this online session. As Kofi mentioned, we are doing 3 sessions. Today's topic is on customs procedures for export and import. We are also doing a session on the 1st of October on cross-border trade facilitation, and then on the 18th of October on cross-border trade finance. We've been working with Dode for the past years, and he's actually the best person to deliver these sessions for you. GIZ has been implementing AfCFTA in Ghana together with our Ghanaian partners since 2020, and AGI is one of our key partners. So thanks, AGI, for collaborating with us and for hosting this session. Without further ado, I wish you all a fruitful session, and I look forward to the discussions. Thank you, Kofi.
Thank you, Sophia. So I think we just jump into it since people have been waiting for a bit. Mr. Dode Seidu would give a short introduction of himself, his expertise, and then we'll jump right into the presentation. So Dode, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sophia, and thank you, Kofi, and the AGI Energy team for this opportunity once again. I think by way of introduction, my name is Dode Seidu. I work as a consultant for the GIZ Trade Hub on the components supporting the AfCFTA implementation in Ghana. One of the key components, one of the key aspects of that AfCFTA support program is to provide capacity and resources that would not just help the public sector in negotiating the agreement, but also supporting the private sector to be able to appreciate the requirements of the AfCFTA agreement, as well as related topics to be able to, take advantage of it. So I have a 15 years experience working in private sector development, trade facilitation, agribusiness, finance and facilitation, market research, development communications, and I have been on this AfC support program effectively since 2021. Prior to that, I worked as a trade facilitation specialist and liaison for a World Bank program called the Trade Facilitation West Africa Program. And so it's a great delight to be here. Just as also as a context, we have come this far to do this webinar because the Trade Hub and the Energy Service Center decided to look at how to further support business that are green focused, to take advantage of the AfCFTA. And we undertook some assessments, looked at some of the products that they provide, and saw that with the energy efficiency support that the Energy Center provided, most of those businesses have been able to improve on their energy use, their energy efficiency. They are into recycling, as well as very environmentally friendly products. And so this webinar is one of the series we're doing to support that. Now, for the sake of this conversation, most of the scenarios would be Ghana specific. If there's anybody joining who is not Ghanaian, some of the examples may not apply in your country. But what I'm saying is that generally we are speaking to the Ghana context. How is customs procedures important when it comes to the conversation on the AfCFTA? First of all, customs is at the heart of any trade agreement. The success or failure, if any, of any trade agreement depends on the extent to which the customs of any country or the countries involved are aware and participate in that trade agreement. In the same way, you cannot trade across borders without dealing with customs. And so understanding what the customs procedures are, understanding what the implications are will be very important for your business. What I hope to do is to provide you with the general information and also look at how you could use existing tools. I think in my experience with many businesses, sometimes either not understanding what the procedures are or thinking that by themselves they can change the procedures. I would say like that may not be possible unless maybe you have certain type of business resources, but you just have to understand the procedures and fit your organization into the procedures and maximize any opportunities that exist within the framework of that agreement or of that procedure. So in terms of what I'll be talking about, I'll cover a couple of issues or processes. Most importantly, I will talk about the import and export legal framework in Ghana, and of course, tie that with the international conventions and agreements that Ghana is a party to, and which many countries are a party to. I'll talk about procedures when it comes to exports, procedure when it comes to imports. I'll look at customs key activities in imports, as in classification and valuation. And then I will talk about some of the pitfalls that businesses unknowingly get involved with, and therefore leads to them suffering when it comes to import and export. Then finally, I have a slide on a recent time release study that was conducted by the Customs of Ghana, and 3 or so issues that are very relevant for the private sector, some of which you may know, some of which you may not know, and how that could actually help you in navigating customs import and export procedures. So when it comes to import export in Ghana, we have national laws and international conventions that Ghana applies. And so just not to take too much detail on that, we have the Import and Export Act, which provides the terms and conditions as well as applicable procedures for commercial import and export. This is the act that actually defines what is exportable, what are export restricted, what are export prohibited, and the general framework of import and export in Ghana. Then the Customs Act of 2015 makes provisions for all customs activities, including how customs duties would be applied, what are customs controls that exist, the existing custom regimes, and the offenses and penalties that are applicable. Then in 2017, there was a revision of this act to make requirements for bonded warehousing and related topics. Then in 2023, there was an amendment of the Customs Excise Duty Act to levy increased duties on certain excise products, as well as add duties for products which did not either to subject to excise duties. Then, of course, we have international trade agreements or international agreements that Ghana is signatory to, which plays in. So Ghana is a member of the WTO right from 1994. We are signatory to the Agreement on Customs Valuation, and therefore its principles and its procedures are applicable. We sign on to the Trade Facilitation Agreement, so Ghana is implementing trade facilitation measures. We are a member of the ECOWAS, and therefore the ECOWAS Trade Realization Scheme applies. We are members of the International Maritime Organization, as well as the International Air Transport Associations. So all these bodies play a role in how our import-export procedures are developed and applied. Similarly, we are signatory and ratify the AfCFTA, as well as the Ghana-EU Economic Partnership Agreement, as well as the Ghana-UK Trade Partnership Agreement. So all of these play a role in how we implement our import and export procedures. So what is a typical import and export procedure? Before we start, like I mentioned, the Import and Export Act of 1995 defines 2 broad categories of what can be exported. The products could either be described as traditional exports or non-traditional exports. And so the traditional exports are specified in the Act, and they could be revised by the Minister of Trade. But as we speak now, in that Act, we have cocoa beans, logs and timber, unprocessed gold and other minerals, as well as electricity. So these are what we define by the agreement as traditional exports. Now, why is this important? It's important because the categorization determines also the regulation. Who is responsible for permitting, for licensing, and certifications when it comes to dealing with these kind of products. When it comes to the non-traditional exports, any other product other than the traditional exports are in that category. And therefore, we have over 500 different products in the non-traditional exports, categorized also into 4. So we have the raw agricultural products. So the pineapple, raw mango, any products that we export raw would be in the raw agricultural products of the non-traditional export category. We have the processed foods where value has been added. And then we have the manufactured products which are not food. So electric cables, pharmaceuticals, aluminum products, plastic products, we have that category. Then we have the handicrafts, so woodcraft, baskets, beads, and things like that are also in that category as well. So when it comes to the export process, what is important is to start the process before actually exporting. And so before you export, it is important that you undertake your business registration, because you can export only as a registered business, even if it's a sole proprietorship or it's a registration in your name. You must be registered. You must obtain registration with the Ghana Export Promotion Authority. And here I'm speaking mostly to the non-traditional exports, where you need to have your non-traditional registration with Ghana Export Promotion Authority. Then there are other licenses and permits that are required from different institutions depending on the product you are exporting. Now, in terms of steps, these are what would typically be involved. Of course, there are detailed process maps. There are detailed stepwise what happens within ICOMS, what happens with customs and other institutions. But for the sake of this presentation, we have 6 main steps. So typically, your first step will be to do the registrations and obtain your licenses before you actually engage or get a commercial invoice from your customer or your buyer. And then once you have that, you would, of course, step 3, get your certificate of origin. Usually, because most of our products are agricultural products, you may need to get your sanitary certificate. So whether it's from the Plant Protection and Regulatory Service Directorate or from the Food and Drugs Authority, or if it's fish, for example, you may have to get it from the Ghana Standards Authority. All of these are very important certifications that you must get. And then you also need to have your certificate of analysis and inspection, where inspection and analysis is required. It's after these that you can present your products to customs with your declaration for export. And like I said, this is just a broad overview. But what is important in this conversation is to keep in mind that you cannot export without the registrations, without the licenses, and without the permits. And therefore, it is good to know which permits are required and from which source. So this is typically requirements you need to have if you're doing antiques or antique exports, require permits from the Museums and Monuments Board. If you're doing chemicals, whether it's, for example, plant-based chemicals or inorganic chemicals, you will need Environmental Protection Agency permits. If you're doing cocoa beans, of course, it's Cocoa Board, but certainly all cocoa exports are under the ambit of Cocoa Board. Coffee, cashew, and cashew nuts, you will still need Cocoa Board permits, especially when it comes to fumigation, where you will need quality assurance and control division of Cocoa Board to give you a permit. Any live plants, cut flowers, seeds, you need your permit from the Plant Protection and Regulatory Service Directorate of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. And if you're doing processed products, manufactured products, you need your Ghana Standards Authority permit. Mineral oils, you need a Minerals Commission permit. Non-ferrous scraps from the Ministry of Trade and Industry. Other scraps, you need Environmental Protection Agency as well as the Ministry of Trade and Industry. If you're doing palm oil, it's very important for you to get the FDA permits, especially palm oil products have become very much adulterated with Sudan dyes, and Ghana is almost is under scrutiny, and so you need your permit from the Food and Drugs Authority. If you're doing pets, the veterinary services or any animal, live animal, from Veterinary Service Division, pharmaceuticals from the Ministry of Health and also the Food and Drugs Authority. The list goes on and on. If you're doing wildlife, you need a permit from, the Department of Wildlife, as Ghana is a signatory to the Convention on Trade and Endangered Species, the CITES Convention. And if you're doing charcoal, you need permit from the Energy Commission as well. Now, beyond that, you also need to have certain documentation to support your export. So you need your commercial invoice, which of course indicates what you are selling to your buyer and the amount that is to be paid, and it's a very critical document that you need to have. Your bill of lading, of course, which is what you would present from your carrier, indicating that you've engaged them to carry the goods. Then, of course, your packing list, which will contain all the information about the goods to be exported, its quantity, what packaging it is in, the dimensions, if any, and therefore the pricing applicable. Then, of course, your certificate of origin, and here we're talking about export. So you need to get a certificate of origin from depending on the product in question, but usually it's through the Ghana Chamber of Commerce and Industry, of course, working with Ministry of Trade and Industry, as well as working with the Ghana Customs to issue that certificate of origin. And again, remember, you're not getting it at the point of export. You're getting it before you even start the process. So if you do any manufactured products besides your permit, you want to make sure that you have a certificate of origin from the competent authority to go along with your products. Now, let me go to the import process, which is much more longer and complicated in terms of process. So again, just like exports, import into Ghana also requires certain permits, certification licenses, and therefore similar, the same institutions may apply. And here you have to get it before you start the process. So start your permit process, obtain your permits before your goods arrive. And the importer can be a natural person or a business, just like in the export process. Usually, you may need to engage a customs broker or a forwarder to help you with the process. You can do it by yourself if you are competent to do it, but it's advisable to work with an agent who is knowledgeable of the processes and what is required. So, of course, your waybill, your bill of lading, your invoice, your packing list, your import declaration form from Ministry of Trade, and on which you would indicate your tax identification number or your national ID number. So just like the export process, you will need to have all your permits and licenses in place. You submit your documents to customs through the customs system, the integrated customs management system. And of course, within that, customs would conduct classification and valuation. And based on the classification and valuation, the import duty or the duties to be paid will be determined. It depends on a number of factors. We'll talk about that shortly. And once you've done the duty payments, the required agencies would conduct the inspection, the joint inspections. And if all is clear, you can be cleared out of the port or the seaport or the airport. Now, having spoken about the process, what are the common import and export errors that people make? Often people don't get all the licenses. Again, why it's important is because much as most of the process has been streamlined, there is a single window which does all the processing. There is still time required for you to obtain information, submit the information, and get the necessary approvals. So it is important that you already factor that into your process to make sure that you have a good lead time before you either start the import process or the export process. Sometimes you have issues about incorrect product description and classification. Since product description and classification is an important element of the import and export process, it's important for you to get it right. Inaccurate value of the goods and supporting documents. So sometimes either due to intentions or oversight, if you don't provide the proper value of the goods, and if the supporting documents are not accurate, it can lead to complications in the process. Wrong or missing information, inconsistent information. Remember, you have your commercial invoice, you have your bill of lading, you have your packing list, you have certificate of origin. All the information on all of this must be consistent. It must be consistent in terms of description, in terms of harmonized commodity classification, value, packaging. And so if there is any inconsistencies, it would create some problems for you. Non-compliance with export regulations or import regulations. What is important here is for you to understand that a process, or the fact that a process is undertaken in your country in terms of export does not mean that it's already undertaken in the country of import. So sometimes we think that, well, it was subject to inspection when I was importing it, therefore it doesn't have to be inspected again. Sometimes a product that is eligible to be exported from one country may be subject to other controls or additional controls in the country of import. And therefore, it's important that whilst you think about the procedures from your country, you need to equally understand the procedures in the importing country. Improper packaging or labeling that could affect the process, of course, and then missing documentation could also affect that. So let's talk about these two almighty customs activities that sometimes, as private sector people, we may get it wrong or have the wrong assumptions: customs classification and valuation. So every product in international trade is subject to valuation, is subject to classification. And therefore, it is important for you to understand what is involved. For Ghana, just like many other countries which are members of the World Customs Organization, we use the HS code to do the classification. And in addition to that, since we are also a member of the ECOWAS under the Trade Liberalization Scheme, we are also using the ECOWAS Common External Tariff for the classification. What is important for us to know is that the goods classification is a shared responsibility between the importer of record, which is the importer who is ultimately responsible for the import, and the customs authority. Sometimes we think that it is just the customs that must do the classification or the appropriate classification. Yes, customs has the purview, but also as an importer or an exporter, it is your responsibility to make sure that you get the classification right. And one of the tools you can use is what we call advanced rulings. in customs procedures, as well as in trade facilitation measure. Or you can write to your customs if you're having challenges classifying, or every time you import or export, there's always a back and forth with customs. You can write to customs for a classification determination, where customs can sit with your organization to agree on that, on the appropriate classification, so that every time you import, you don't have to, go through the process of discussing the classification every time. So you can learn to properly classify or verify classification information you receive from your suppliers or brokers. So it's also not to be taken hook, line, and sinker if it's given to you by your supplier or by your partner, or your buyer or seller, that you accept it. You have to make sure that you know that this is the appropriate classification. Time will not allow us to go through, of course, all the ways of classifying, but I thought that I should give you some common mistakes that people make when it comes to classifying, especially when you don't verify the supplier provided HS codes. So it is important. Even more important is the fact that, of course, in general terms, the HS, many countries, or the WCO gives up to 6 numbers. So from chapters to headings and subheadings that everybody uses. But within countries, people can break it down up to the 10-digit level. And the 8 to the 10-digit level of the HS classification often contains country-specific classification. So countries are free to do sub, and therefore it is important for you to know. So what it means is that if I'm exporting the product to you, I may give you the HS maybe up to the 8 or 10-digit level from my country, let's say the US, or let's say Kenya. And if you're in Ghana, you may have to also verify that that same classification applies in your context. So that is important. Over-reliance on customs brokers without duty of care. So it's very important to use customs brokers. It's very advisable to work with them, but not verifying it, again and again, is something that could go against you as a business. Product descriptions that are too generic, and therefore, sometimes, not sometimes, in the classification, the advice is to go for specific other than generic, and therefore, if you have the opportunity to have a specific description that matches your goods or products, it's advisable to use that. Of course, in business, we are in business to make profits, and sometimes profit comes from low cost. And one of the mistakes you can make is only choosing classifications that give you lower duty rates, much as that may be for the benefit of your import process. It could also have implications if there are other classifications that may give you higher costs. So what I'm saying is that don't only focus on lower cost duty rates, but also look at duty rates that fit the description of your product. Not understanding the general, the HS general interpretation rules. So there are rules for interpretation that you need to take time to understand and follow them if you want to gain mastery in classification. And of course, it's more trickier when the products you are importing or exporting are a product in sets. So a product with different parts together, which may not constitute one product. The different parts together may not constitute one product. How do you classify that? It's more trickier to use that. But the general rule is that you always have to find a description that fits the purpose, the use, the performance of the products in question. Now, when it comes to valuation, the key word here is to determine the customs value of a product in international trade. And therefore, it is important that you, of course, know that as a customs process, because you're working with them. with customs to make sure that the value you provide is the value that they should have. What people forget is that over the years, you know, I know, for example, in Ghana, there's been several arguments about, you know, customs process for valuation. What people forget is that customs systems generate a lot of data, you know, on the products we import and export, generate data on the values, on the classification, and therefore, to a large degree, even without you providing a value, customs may have or would have values in their system that they can use to gauge if the value you are providing is in the range or not. So that is something to keep in mind. In Ghana, our duties are levied ad valorem, and the duties is also levied on CIF, cost, insurance, and freight, you know, and also adding other taxes, which I will show in the next slide. And because of the ECOWAS common standard tariff as well, we base our valuation and duty calculation on all of these factors. So in the ECOWAS common standard tariff, there are 5 bands for the common standard tariff. And on your left hand, you will see these bands. So for essential social goods, they will fall under the 0 rated band. 5% will be applicable to basic necessities, basic raw materials, and specific inputs. 10% for inputs and intermediary products, 20% for finished goods, and 35% for goods for specific economic development. In addition to that, you have, in terms of the value that you pay, additional taxes. So your value added tax, your national health insurance levy, all of these taxes apply. What I've put in asterisk are duties that may apply or may not apply depending on the origin of your import. So for example, if you are importing from Africa, from an African Union member, the AU levy will not apply. If you are applying from an ECOWAS country, if your products originate from ECOWAS, the ECOWAS levy will not apply. So just keep that in mind in terms of your valuation. So generally speaking, about 90% or more of international trade, when it comes to valuation, uses the transaction value. And the transaction value here is the value that you will typically have between the seller and the buyer. However, since Ghana is a member of the WTO and also a signatory to the WTO agreement on valuation, there are also other ways of calculating the customs value in case the transaction value is not satisfying to customs. And here again, like I mentioned, because the customs has data, information on goods flow, the values, and all of that. If you present a value, even if it's agreed between you and your buyer as a transaction value, customs has the reserve in terms of law to challenge your valuation as indicated on your commercial invoice, and or look into their system to say, well, this value is totally at variance with what is known. Now, what I mentioned was that in terms of classification and valuation, if you are a business person, you have the liberty to go to customs and discuss the valuation. You can come to an agreement with the customs authority to make sure that your valuation for your product, if, for example, you import that specific product often, and there's always a back and forth with customs to agree. They can give you, you can write to them, they can give you a determination on the classification to use. And every time you import, you can use that to back your imports in terms of that classification determination. When it comes to valuation, of course, you can also ask customs for a determination through advanced rulings, of course, subject to certain conditions to get your valuation done. But what is also equally important is that you can appeal the customs valuation. If customs gives a valuation, if we go to the customs head office in Accra, at the Customs Technical Services Bureau, there is an office for appeal. You can appeal the valuation, but please make sure that you have your facts right, because sometimes people go for appeal of the valuation, and when the customs assesses the documentation, they may actually revise it up if the information available to them indicates that even their previous valuation was lower. So what are some of the common valuation mistakes that businesses make? Of course, not understanding the full terms of an import transaction. So yes, you may do an import and forgetting that, number one, the customs value, so the transaction value in the case of Ghana is CIF. So whatever has been agreed, the cost, the insurance freight will be added. Other factors will be added, rebates and things like that will be added, commissions will be added. So it's important for you to make sure that on your invoice and in the transaction that you're doing in your contract, every information is included so that the value is easy to be determined. Secondly, of course, the improper use of Incoterms. So if you are using Incoterms inappropriately, international commercial terms inappropriately, it could go against you if the inappropriate term is used. Inconsistency in supporting documentation, I've mentioned that already. Under invoicing or over invoicing. And here, again, the advice I gave as to the proper valuation, customs having the ability to verify what value you are submitting, even though you have an invoice between you and your seller or your buyer. Now, recently there was a time release study that was conducted by customs to assess import and export processes where there are bottlenecks and what can be done to improve those aspects. And a number of findings were made. Some applicable customs, in particular, some applicable to the private sector. And for this conversation, I'm focusing more on the private sector, the declarants, agents, and businesses. And there are just three key ones, but it's important for this conversation. It takes about 6 days, or it took about 6 days and 8 hours from vessel berth to the submission of bill of entry, the BOEs, by declarants. And this was a key challenge that already affected the duration of clearance when it comes to our ports. And the question was, why does it take a lot of time for declarants to submit the BOEs in the customs system? Of course, the reasons are there, but the point is that many people are not aware of pre-arrival processing, trade facilitation measure provided for by customs and also within the customs system. So you don't have to wait for your vessel to arrive before you begin the processes. Like I mentioned in the beginning, if you need permits, if you need licenses, if you need certifications, you can begin all of that before it arrives. And then, of course, you can submit that to get your clearance to begin. The next finding in the process was the fact that it takes about 4 days, 15 hours for declarants to accept the BOE assessments. And here, again, there was a question as to why a delay in, so once you submit it, and of course, customs does the classification and valuation, and this, you have to accept it before the process can continue. And here again, the awareness and utilization of the pre-arrival processing within the customs management system is very, very, very important. Then finally, delays in duty payment. So Once you accept it, then of course you have to pay the duty, whatever has been assessed. And here again, it took a longer time. So of course, the pre-arrival processing module is there for you to use in the customs management system. Then of course, you have the duty calculator, which you can also use to already know what is the potential duty you pay, and therefore make those resources available so that as soon as you get to know the customs valuation and what duties must be paid, you would of course make it available. Then there is a self-assessment tool, which you can also use to assess the duty payable before the duty payments are made known. So in short, I think these are the key things that we covered today. Of course, I know there are other factors like the exchange rates, which affects the ability to determine your valuation. We know that the Customs Authority depends on the Bank of Ghana to know the duty, the exchange rate for the day, and that could also affect, the currency stability and all of that. But in a nutshell, this is just a quick overview of the customs import and export process that I wanted to present today. And I'll now pause here. If there are any questions or comments, I will take it. Over to you, Kofi.
Thank you, Mr. Seidu, for your presentation. It's very insightful. While you were speaking, a couple of people were. Oh, sorry, I think someone is muted. A couple of people were typing their questions. I'd read a few of those before I allow the participants to also verbally ask some of their questions. The first one, which came during the presentation, was from Catherine, and she was asking if you need an environmental certification from soap prepared from natural oils.
No, you don't need an environmental certification to export. Perhaps if your business operations have, which of course will have environmental impact, you would need an environmental certificate, what do you call it? An environmental impact assessments and all the things from EPA in respect of your operations, but not in respect of your exports. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure that answers your question. And there was one more from Lisbeth Salifu, and that's where and how does an exporter get access to an HS code in Ghana?
If you want to get the HS code, you can Google it, but you can also look for the ECOWAS Common External Tariff Handbook to find out. If you're starting, I'm assuming the person asking the question may be starting this all together. Please get an agent. The processes are not easy to navigate. If you're running a business at the same time, I would really recommend you finding an agent who can help you, and then you can verify whatever information you share with you. Thank you.
Thank you. I think my colleague has put it in a group, but if you have any questions, kindly lift your hand up and then give you permission to also speak. Before that, I think there's one more question. It's from a user without a name. He asked if you can please explain the Incoterms.
Sorry, that is another, we need another webinar for that. But basically, these are internationally agreed terms for commerce between suppliers and buyers that determine the cost and responsibilities of moving goods between the buyer and the seller. So usually when goods are being moved between a seller and a buyer, there are other intermediaries involved. The seller may engage, a transport company, may send the goods by sea or by air, and the buyer may also engage other people to also receive the goods. And so when the goods are moving, who is responsible for what is what Incoterms tries to define. So who is responsible for customs duty payment? Who is responsible for loading the goods, offloading the goods? It's a whole, we need a whole webinar for that. But what is important is that if you don't have Incoterms agreed, or which Incoterms to use agreed between you and the buyer and the seller, and also incorporated into your contract, it might affect the payment of the goods in case something goes wrong, or in case the goods don't arrive, as anticipated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seidu. Let me check in our participants to see if there are any other questions. Okay, I think Sophia has her hand up. Sophia, go on.
Thanks so much.
We'll take it from Pauline.
Thank you. I just wanted to also put this in the context of the AfCFTA, Dode, and just to ask you, what do you think has changed since we had this whole implementation of AfCFTA for the past few years, concretely in terms of customs procedures? And what do you think will change in the future as more and more countries start implementing domesticating AfCFTA? Thank you.
Thank you. So for customs in Ghana, a lot has changed and very positively. So, for example, we've been able to provide our schedule of tariff concessions. We've been able to gazette these schedules. And then we have, of course, designated our competent authority as customs when it comes to certificate of origin. We've been able to train the officers, some of which was financed and supported by GIZ across the country. And therefore, in terms of readiness, in terms of processes, yes, so we have also, designed, approved, and issued a couple of certificates of origin under the AfCFTA from Ghana by Ghana Customs. And so these are very significant measures. Of course, the change in terms of the process flow is not that has changed, but in terms of the tools and elements you would have needed to trade under AfCFTA for Ghana Customs, it's been very, very advanced in terms of that implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dode. I think we can go to Paulina. Paulina, can you unmute and ask your question?
Okay. Good morning, Reverend. Good morning. Yes. Good morning. So you have to pardon me. My background is very noisy. But just to add a bit about the question on the HS code, where to find it. So first of all, it's a whole book that gets published. All right. So you can get the full book, which is quite a bulky one. And then number two, specifically to your item, when you Google the name of the item, so you say, okay, HS code for so and so item, it will pull a number for you, and then you pick out the correct one. But of course, on a general normal, they don't really need all the book. You need what pertains to just your product. That's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulina. Who is, by the way, a freight forwarder, so you can reach a very good one.
Thank you, Paulina. I think Catherine also has a question. Catherine, you can go on. Hello, Catherine. You are still muted. Okay. Before Catherine comes back, Samuel Zita, I think if you can unmute and ask your question.
Hi, Sam. Good to see you. Hear you.
Hello. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you, Dode. Nice to meet you all virtually. So I'm a trade consultant, and I'm here to learn and listen your experiences. I've got maybe first of all, Dode, thanks a lot for your insightful presentation. Very, very useful, particularly for someone who's new in this sphere. I have two quick questions for you, Dode. Maybe because I'm not Ghanaian and I'm Mozambican, and I want to learn a bit more about your experiences. The first one would be on what's the COVID-19 levy rationale? Is it still applicable, and how does it work? So that's the first question. The second question is I would like to know what's the experience of Ghana in dealing with small-scale, informal, cross-border traders. Are there special procedures or support desks for this group of traders? Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel, for your question. So the COVID-19 levy is one of the taxes levied on imports and products consumed in Ghana. The rationale is, of course, we all know we had COVID. We all, of course, we all, but in Ghana, the government made some expenses in terms of, reinvigorating the economy, and some of those costs had to be recovered, and therefore this levy was introduced. From the trading public, there's been requests to take it off, but it's not been responded to yet. Perhaps we have elections coming up in December. Whichever way the elections go, some of these taxes may be reconsidered, and so that is the explanation I'll give for that. Small-scale cross-border traders, yes, we have a good, just like every part of Africa, many of our traders are in the small-scale category. We have, a simplified system for declaration for small-scale cross-border traders. Of course, the informal ones is quite challenging. For small-scale cross-border traders, there's a simplified declaration, and for value of goods, around I think 2,000. I've looked for actually the document that says what the value of goods should be, but I think it's around $2,000 or below. Between 500. The last one I saw was 500. I saw another one 2,000. But you can look at that to see how that can be addressed. So basically, they don't get, unlike parts of East Africa where when you declare as a small-scale cross-border trader, your duty on your product to be waived. Here, we have rather a simplified declaration form, but the duty is not waived. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think Catherine wanted to ask, but she had problems unmuting. Let me see if I could do it from this side.
I figured it out. Hi.
Yes. Okay. Hello.
Thanks. Sorry for earlier. I was trying to find the button. I'm trying to understand as a small, not just as a small trader, but just in general, if I want to export something today from Ghana to, let's say, Nigeria, for example, the question for me is what cost-wise, right, apart from the processes and procedures, but cost-wise, how beneficial is it to me under AfCFTA versus prior to the implementation of AfCFTA?
Well, thank you for your question. So, two clarifications. First of all, Ghana and Nigeria are members of ECOWAS. And within ECOWAS, our trading framework, we are at the point where originating products, products that are originating do not pay duties. And therefore, if you ask me, with an example between two ECOWAS countries, or advise use the ECOWAS trade liberalization to do your trading.
Okay.
However, if you're asking the question between, let's say, a country in East Africa or Southern Africa and Ghana, and you ask the question, what is the cost-wise benefit? The answer would be to, first of all, evaluate for yourself as a business the cost of freight between Ghana, or moving the goods, transportation between Ghana and let's say South Africa. And also you have to evaluate the cost of duties that you'd have paid in the absence of the AfCFTA. And that question, these kind of questions will help you to know if it is profitable or not. But on the face of it, the key thing is that the AfCFTA removes the tariffs that you have paid in the absence of the AfCFTA. And therefore, if the tariff is removed or reduced, the question now becomes, will it give you a cost advantage or a price advantage in that market?
Okay, so the AfCFTA actually removes tariffs between the trading nations. Reducing. So it's
to removing.
Okay, it's either reducing or removing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. I think we have another question in the message box. The question from Michael Seidu is asking, assuming you have successfully imported goods to Ghana, example, roasted and processed coffee from Rwanda under the AfCFTA, does the products need to be registered with GSA or FDA before being sold? What's the status of harmonization?
The answer is yes. You need to, by Ghana's import and export regulations, any food, pharmaceutical or medical device coming into Ghana must have market authorization from the Food and Drugs Authority. And that is something you cannot run away from. So if you're importing roasted coffee beans or anything like that into Ghana, you would need to get your FDA pre-approval. And this is where I think sometimes we miss it. The approval must be done prior, not at the point of import. So ideally, you would go and get a sample of the coffee beans, bring it to the FDA, of course, following their formats and their requirements, the information you have to provide. And FDA has to do their test analysis and approve it before you can now go and import it in commercial quantity. So that is the process that you must follow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure that answers Michael's questions. If he has a follow-up, I'm sure he'd raise his hand also. Yes. Thank you from him. There are no more hands in the chats and no more questions in the chat box. Sophia, would you want to speak a little bit on what the GIZ Trade Hub is doing in this space while we wait for other questions? I think we're a little ahead of time.
Happily so. I mean, to a large extent, I think it's become clear from this conversation that the implementation of AfCFTA is very much at its nascent stages, right? So I'm sure Dode can also provide an overview of exactly where the tariff liberalization status is at the moment. But we have a situation where you have a time frame for which different countries have to liberalize their tariffs on various goods. So there's a different timeline for least developed nations and non-least developed countries. As it stands, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 92% of tariff lines that have been liberalized. And there are certain products, like sensitive products, that are yet to be discussed and negotiated on. Our support is GIZ. Our main political partner in Ghana is the Ministry of Trade and Industry. So we are working quite closely with MOTI as well as the National Coordination Office in Ghana for AfCFTA, which is responsible for coordinating with the various line ministries in Ghana to ensure that AfCFTA is domesticated. The interesting developments, at least in this space, is something called the Guided Trade Initiative. I don't know how many of you are aware, but Ghana is hosting the Secretariat for the AfCFTA in Accra. And last year, there was the first phase of the Guided Trade Initiative where companies were being supported to actually trade under AfCFTA in order to be able to also learn the challenges and what lessons learned are there for implementers. The Guided Trade Initiative Phase 2 is actually going to be implemented soon now with 39 countries taking part, Ghana being one of them as well. And there's going to be a kickoff, I think, through an event in Rwanda from the 9th to the 11th of October, where various SMEs have been invited to come and participate. Through these GTI initiatives, we hopefully can learn a little bit more concretely what are the challenges that companies face when they trade under AfCFTA, and work with the Secretariat as well as the African Union Commission in Ethiopia to try and solve some of those bottlenecks. I don't know if you want to add anything more here, Dode, in terms of where the current status is of implementation.
Thank you, Sophia. Yes, so in terms of implementation, we are in the fifth year. Fifth year. We started effectively moving the tariffs from 2021. So 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. So the fourth year, going to the fifth year. So tariffs would be going down almost, gradually. And then we expect about 99.3% of rules of origin have been agreed, and therefore most goods, apart from automotives, apparel and textiles, are outstanding. And so we've seen some progress there. Of course, the progress we're yet to see is businesses actually moving goods in a significant volume. And in my view, I think it is there are still more people who are needing to understand this agreement and also understand the market opportunities in other African countries and how to take advantage of them. And so this is where we stand. In terms of the GTI, my last information indicates that we have over 30 countries out of the 48 ratified that are participating in the GTI, including Cameroon. Somebody asked a question if Cameroon is part of the GTI. Yes. There are two views on the GTI. One view is that if we are trading, we should trade. Why create a special regime? I support the GTI in terms of its ability to catalyze interest in countries to trade. However, beyond its launch and the GTI, then business and countries are just often not in the trading mood. But hopefully, maybe with the second round to be launched next month, we expect to see a lot of businesses moving goods in commercial quantities across the continent. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia, and thank you, Dode. I think we have another question in the chat box. It's from Nene. He's asking, and he's saying he's a manufacturer of red chili powder pepper and needs help on how to export to other countries. He has the GSA and FDA certification, including his facility certification.
Wow, that's good progress. Congrats on that. Please, the first step is to look for buyers. Okay, so please spend some time to either identify countries you can export to, or countries with demand for this product. For example, we're talking about AfCFTA, so you have to look for African countries that like chili. Or that like value-added chili. I noticed that in Malawi, for example, they have chili sauce presented in the form of ketchup. And then, so as you're eating, if you want to spice your food, you can instantly pick it from the table and increase the pepper in your food. And so those are some of the things. I think what should be clear also is that the market for the raw chilies, or is low, because every country in Africa has chilies, right? But how to add value, whether it's grounded form, in sauce form, or other value additions will be good. But more importantly, please look for buyers. The AGI is there. You can reach out to them. You can reach out to GNCCI to help you to get buyers. Visit the Africa Trade Observatory, which is a platform developed by the AfCFTA Secretariat to kind of like simulate where there could be demand for chilies in Africa, and then begin to look for buyers. Once you get a buyer, that's actually when the process of exporting begins. Then you can now think about what are the standards that are required in the market other than your FDA and your GSA certificates. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dode. That fully answers the question. For the participants in the chat box, we've put in a short survey form. So if you could kindly click on it and answer it for us, it really takes just a few seconds. We've come to the end, barring any last questions from anyone, to the end of our first session. As we mentioned at the beginning, this is the first of 3 sessions. The next 2 would be on cross-border trade facilitation on the 1st of October, and then cross-border trade finance on the 18th of October. We'll be sending around reminders to all participants. Also, there were some questions asking for the slides. We would share that, and also the video of the recording would also be shared. So again, before we end, I'd ask Sophia if she would have any final words to say, and then we can bring this session to a close.
Just to say thank you. Thanks, Kofi, for the great moderation and also for the very useful, insightful input, Dode. I'm actually looking forward to the next 2 sessions as well, so we can look at this as a whole, because I feel like there are so many steps in this process. And if there are specific requests from the participating companies in these calls for any topics that they wish to delve deeper into, we would be grateful to consider that for future sessions. So thank you very much for your time, your contributions, your comments, questions, and I hope to see you all at the next session.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all, and thank you, Dode. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you for my partners for helping me with this assistance, and thank you for joining. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Now lies within your reach. What would you do? All you have to do is reach out to the AGI Energy Service Center. We provide tailor-made energy saving solutions to businesses. We provide you with solar feasibility studies, energy audits, energy efficiency trainings, and financial advisory services. Visit AGI-ESC.com for more information, or call us on 0507 977 902. AGI-ESC, Sustainable Energy for Profitability, an initiative of the Association of Ghana Industries in partnership with the German Development Corporation, implemented by GIZ. What if the answer to powering and running a clean, efficient, and sustainable business now lies within your reach? What would you do? All you have to do is reach out to the AGI Energy Service Center. We provide tailor-made energy saving solutions to businesses. We provide you with solar feasibility studies, energy audits, energy efficiency trainings, and financial advisory services. Visit AGI-ESC.com for more information or call us on 0507 977 902. AGI-ESC, Sustainable Energy for Profitability, an initiative of the Association of Ghana Industries in partnership with the German Development Corporation, implemented by GIZ. What if the answer to powering and running a clean, efficient, and sustainable business now lies within your reach? What would you do? All you have to do is reach out to the AGI Energy Service Center. We provide tailor-made energy saving solutions to businesses. We provide you with solar feasibility studies, energy audits, energy efficiency trainings, and financial advisory services. Visit AGI-ESC.com for more information or call us on 0507 977 902. AGI-ESC, Sustainable Energy for Profitability, an initiative of the Association of Ghana Industries in partnership with the German Development Corporation, implemented by GIZ. What if the answer to powering and running a clean, efficient, and sustainable business now lies within your reach? What would you do? All you have to do is reach out to the AGI Energy Service Center. We provide tailor-made energy saving solutions to businesses. We provide you with solar feasibility studies, energy audits, energy efficiency trainings, and financial advisory services. Visit AGI-ESC.com for more information or call us on 0507 977 902. AGI-ESC, Sustainable Energy for Profitability, an initiative of the Association of Ghana Industries in partnership with the German Development Corporation, implemented by GIZ. What if the answer to powering and running a clean, efficient, and sustainable business now lies within your reach? What would you do? All you have to do is reach out to the AGI Energy Service Center. We provide tailor-made energy saving solutions to businesses. We provide you with solar feasibility studies, energy audits, energy efficiency trainings, and financial advisory services. Visit AGI-ESC.com for more information or call us on 0507 977 902. AGI-ESC, Sustainable Energy for Profitability, an initiative of the Association of Ghana Industries in partnership with the German Development Corporation, implemented by GIZ. What if the answer to powering and running a clean, efficient, and sustainable business now lies within your reach? What would you do? All you have to do is reach out to the AGI Energy Service Center. We provide tailor-made energy saving solutions to businesses. We provide you with solar feasibility studies, energy audits, energy efficiency trainings, and financial advisory services. Visit AGI-ESC.com for more information or call us on 0507 977 902. AGI-ESC, Sustainable Energy for Profitability, an initiative of the Association of Ghana Industries in partnership with the German Development Corporation, implemented by GIZ. What if the answer to powering and running a clean, efficient, and sustainable business now lies within your reach? What would you do? All you have to do is reach out to the AGI Energy Service Center. We provide tailor-made energy saving solutions to businesses. We provide you with solar feasibility studies, energy audits, energy efficiency trainings, and financial advisory services. Visit AGI-ESC.com for more information or call us on 0507 977 902. AGI-ESC, Sustainable Energy for Profitability, an initiative of the Association of Ghana Industries in partnership with the German Development Corporation, implemented by GIZ.